A story that aired last night at 11 o'clock, but we want to bring that back to you, and we have Nate Morabito on the backside of this. So let me read it for you. Past criminal behavior cost them their right to carry a gun, yet some felons are still easily getting their hands on weapons by making them. WCNC Charlotte's Nate Morabito discovered police are regularly linking these so-called ghost guns to crimes, many of them violent. Let's take a listen into that story.
Ghost guns allow criminals to avoid background checks and use weapons that don't have serial numbers, making it harder for police to investigate their crimes and hold the criminals accountable. All it takes is buying a kit online or using a 3D printer at home. A UNC Charlotte student carjacked.
When he walked up to that student's car in UNCC, it was a loaded gun.
In the middle of the day, as she sat in her Jeep at a campus parking lot.
It had an extended magazine, so the guy had extra bullets. If that doesn't shake you, nothing will.
The carjacker, released from prison just 2 months earlier, armed with a ghost gun. One of nearly 3,000 linked to crimes in North Carolina since 2022. Hundreds of those here in Charlotte.
In our experience, the worst of the worst are using ghost guns. They're the most violent criminals. They're the ones trying to get around the law.
Russ Ferguson is the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina. He says criminals are often relying on ghost guns to scare and even kill their victims. And the perpetrators are disproportionately convicted felons, people already banned from possessing a gun.
They can use ghost guns to make them automatic, to make them hold extra ammunition, to make them somehow more threatening.
The latest ATF data ranks North Carolina 8th in the country for the most ghost guns traced to crimes, accounting for almost 4% of known crimes linked to ghost guns in the U.S. The numbers show nationally the issue worsened at an alarming rate from 2017 to 2023. From a handgun on a college campus here,
it's something that still stings,
to an assault rifle used in a shootout on the other side of the country.
When we pulled up to the hospital, I knew it was not good.
Felons are getting their hands on guns made from 3D printed parts and online kits.
The ease of access and the ease of assembly make it a problem for everybody, everywhere.
Forensics expert Max Hauk says the data is clear. Ghost guns are too easily accessible for criminals.
If you can put together IKEA furniture, you can put together one of these kits in about an hour.
We need to ban these weapons.
State Senator Mujtaba Mohammed co-sponsored legislation earlier this year that would have made ghost guns illegal, not just for felons, but for everyone in North Carolina. The bill failed to make it out of committee.
They're not only a threat to public safety and life, but they're actually creating a problem for prosecutors to be able to prosecute these crimes.
What efforts are you all taking to try and protect the public from this kind of activity?
We have made ghost guns a priority.
Ferguson knows the challenges, but says the numbers, both here and across the U.S., began decreasing in 2024. He credits stronger federal regulations and efforts to charge every possible crime in ghost gun cases. Everything from possessing ammo to, most recently, indicting a felon for allegedly possessing a privately made machine gun in Huntersville. Ferguson hopes the longer sentences send a clear message.
We have had a lot of success.
Even so, in recent years, he says criminals in North Carolina have used ghost guns to commit murder, assault, robbery, domestic violence, and that carjacking of a college student.
It is a terrifying crime, and I'm very happy we brought that person to justice.
In May, a federal judge sentenced the gunman back to prison, this time for 7 more years. Why are so many ghost guns here in North Carolina? Well, aside from our booming population, the U.S. Attorney says our major interstates and location, roughly halfway between Miami and New York, make North Carolina a significant source state. Nate Morabito, WCNC Charlotte.
All right, so that was investigative reporter Nate Morabito, who is here in studio with me. Nate, incredible story as always. How did this story come together?
Yeah, so my friend in Tampa, Jen Titus, she's an investigative reporter, came across this data that showed from the ATF where many of the states rank. And she kind of flagged it to me and said, hey, North Carolina seems to be pretty high on this list. Yeah. I think there's a story here. And absolutely there is. You know, North Carolina has one of the larger populations in the country, but when it comes to this particular issue, the state is unfortunately overperforming is what we found. Basically, we're a higher percentage of the total number of ghost guns used in actual crimes than we are in the total population across the country. And so this is something we've worked on for several months. We interviewed the U.S. Attorney, trying to understand, well, who can do something about this, right? We know law enforcement is trying to. We know prosecutors can do more severe charges when available to try and get these people in prison longer. And of course, the convicted felon part really stuck out to me, because these are people that are not allowed to have guns, that have more reason to try and bypass the law to get a gun if they want to reoffend. And you heard in that carjacking case at UNC Charlotte, this person had been out for just 2 months when he went and carjacked a person, a student, with a loaded ghost gun.
Wow. And went back to prison for 7 more years, according to your story.
Right.
The end of the story, what we heard is North Carolina, because of its position, you're seeing these ghost guns. That's what stuck out for me. What part of the story and part of this investigation stuck out? What was your biggest takeaway when doing this story?
So I've always heard the term ghost gun, and I've seen much of the reporting on it. I really didn't know much about ghost guns until I started looking into this. And that's the beauty of this job, is you become kind of an expert on one particular topic. And what surprised me is that, number one, you can buy parts and kits all over the internet. They're really easy. And my friend down in Tampa, Jen, she was able to go through that process. And it's very quick and easy, no background check necessary oftentimes. And then you can 3D print them. That's another. You can download a template and you can build your own gun. And there's 2 sides to this. One are the people that are gun collectors and don't want to use the gun for anything that would be a criminal in nature, right? But then you have this other aspect where people are going around a system that is in place to try and find a gun anyways, and they don't have to steal them. They can just make them, or they can buy them from someone who makes them. Now, if you're a private seller with a license, you're going to have a serial number on that gun. But because these parts are not actually a gun when they're separate, they don't need serial numbers. And that's really the issue here, because I'm amazed they've been able to track almost 3,000 crimes in North Carolina to these guns, because these guns don't have serial numbers. And that's how you're able to trace where they bought them, where they were used. So it's just, all of it is so complicated. And some states, I think more than a dozen states, have come up with some kind of regulation or ban on ghost guns. You heard Senator Mohammed tried to, with other lawmakers, get a ban passed in North Carolina. Had no success with that. And he says this is not an anti-gun situation. This is about trying to protect people from this particular kind of gun that makes it really hard to hold criminals accountable for their actions.
Yeah, I heard there, if you can build IKEA furniture, you can essentially build a ghost gun within an hour, which is scary when you hear that.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about the different types of guns you can make. I mean, that one person, I believe, was out of Huntersville, charged with making or possessing homemade machine guns. And then you hear the U.S. Attorney talking about how you can use these ghost guns to make weapons potentially even more threatening than they already are. He told me, this is Russ Ferguson, the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina, that there is, especially when it comes to gangs in Charlotte, an arms race. Who can get the most guns, that can shoot the most amount of rounds in the quickest amount of time. He said that's what keeps him up. And these ghost guns essentially are helping those people do that.
Wow. That legislation failed. Representative Mohammed talked about that. Is he planning to reintroduce it anytime soon?
I mean, there's a hope that when the new session starts that they can get this back on the radar, right? And I think that the thought is that this is a no-nonsense, practical solution to an issue, right, that affects a segment of the population here in North Carolina. I know that he feels politically it's very difficult to get this thing moving, because it's going to be stuck in committee. They don't have the power. He's a Democrat. The Democrats don't have the power. So if it is introduced, he really needs bipartisan support. And I think that's what they're looking for. Again, a reasonable solution.
Right.
The thing about banning it is then you're saying, well, if I'm a gun collector, I can't have one. Right now, as long as you're not a felon, I mean, you can have a ghost gun. Right? There's nothing illegal about owning a ghost gun. A felon can't have any weapon. any firearm. And so that's really the issue. So I don't know. I mean, laws are usually for people who follow them, right? Number one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you can catch people who have broken the law and then hold them accountable, that also sends a message that hopefully deters additional crimes.
Yeah. There's always a follow-up to a story. Your stories are essentially that, always a follow-up. And I've learned that from you.
Right.
Is there a question that you just did not get the answer to? Is there something that still you want the answer to when it comes to this investigation?
Well, we actually were in the process of getting access to the ATF's gun vault in our area, which has all of their guns that they've seized. And the government shutdown certainly hasn't helped that. In fact, when I reached back out, my contact's been furloughed. So I'm hoping to be able to go in and see all of the different types of guns they've seized, because I think that's something that maybe people can see with their own eyes and say, wow, look at the variety of weapons that they found, and they've linked to crime scenes. You know, what else can we do to try to crack down on this issue? And I think that's the point of any kind of reporting that we do, is to put it out there to say, are we doing enough?
Yeah.
Should we be doing more? I'm not the expert on what we should do. I just know what the problem is, and we can offer up some different solutions that other places have offered. But ultimately, it's up to the public and their elected officials to decide if this is something they want to pursue. So I think that's really the interesting follow-up here. Will anything else change? There's been some additional regulations at the federal level.
Yep.
Because I think there is an agreement that we don't want felons to get their hands on these guns, in particular, particularly violent criminals. And you heard that family from California, the highway patrolman who was killed. They're big supporters of the Second Amendment, but they also say a felon should not be able to easily get a ghost gun. So there's got to be some middle ground here to do a better job of making sure that these are not easily accessible to everyone, particularly the people that are going to use them for bad intentions. That's really what we're concerned about.
And this, as this subject nationwide, not only here in Charlotte, crime is a big political sticking point right now. Nate Morbido, incredible story.
Oh, I do have one question.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm
sorry, Carlene. Go ahead.
On the list, we were number 8.
Yes.
Can you say like some of the cities that were like above us, so I can get like kind of a perspective of like where, like who's
so
ahead of us?
California, high, right? We're talking about states.
Oh, states. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I thought it was.
I mean, thousands of guns in North Carolina, hundreds found here in Charlotte. Let's just make that clear, right? You've got California, you've got Florida. I was really interested in this. New York, barely ahead of us. New York
I would have
State.
thought it would have been like one of the usual suspects would have been high.
Yes.
You know.
So I think that that's interesting when you look at these other states that, you know, a lot of them are on the East Coast as well. I mean, California, not, but also huge. I was surprised that we're that close behind New York. And it's really, to me, shocking. But again, you know, there's a lot of things about North Carolina. We have a booming population. We're, you know, we're really growing fast. We have the interstates, as I mentioned.
95, 85.
Right.
Yeah, we're halfway up the East Coast, you know, a big access point for a lot of people. Plus, we have a culture that supports guns. And, you know, so I think all of that feeds into it. And, you know, maybe police are just having better luck finding and connecting some guns to certain crimes. But it should be, an alarm should be going off to people. We can't be okay with that. We don't want to be in the worst in the country for this kind of category. These are not just ghost guns found. These are ghost guns found and tied to crimes. And as we mentioned, just last year alone, homicide, domestic violence, a lot of violent crimes these are linked to. We don't need that.
Yeah. Okay. Man, again, an incredible investigation. If you want to check out further, read more into it, Nate's story is available right now on our digital platforms. Speaking of crime,